Hi, everyone. Welcome to Shelf Space with Kino Lorber, where we talk about all things film, filmmaking, and physical media. My name is Greg Hanson from Kino Lorber's production department, and I'm filling in for our usual host, Alicia Liu. I'm here with I'm here with the head of Kino Lorber Studio Classics, Frank Tarzi, and our special guest is Heather Buckley. Heather is a prolific producer, both of indie films like Jen Wexler's The Ranger and literal tons of bonus features for many Kino Lorber home video releases like Crybaby, Ballad of Little Joe, Eastern Promises, Barton Fink, and a ton more. Welcome, Heather.
Hello. Very happy to be here in the office, in the Kino Lorber office, the headquarters, the heart of New York City.
Yeah. Yes, it
We'll
does.
be answering questions from some audience members later in the episode. So I wanted to thank everyone who submitted via email. If you want to submit a question for an upcoming episode, be sure to subscribe to our newsletter and get on the email list. We ask that you please stick with the topics of, film and physical media. If you have any customer service questions, please submit them at the link in the video description below.
Are they allowed to ask about like dating advice and things like that? Things outside of it?
Uh, Always,
Drink of
the
choice.
answers, yeah, the answers might be off the cuff and unfortunate.
I used to eat vodka and whiskey and tequila, so
Or like, what should I have for dinner? Like those questions.
burger is always good.
We always like to start out by asking about how you two know each other. So, Heather, when did you first meet Frank, and how did you start working together on Kino Lorber releases?
Maybe it was like 7.5 years ago. I was doing work. I entered in this field by working with the great Michael Felsher from Red Shirt Pictures. We were on a trip to a horror convention. It could have been Horror Hound, and I couldn't drive in the Synapse van. And Don May was like, "No, go with Mike." And I was telling Mike about some of the movies that I was doing. We Are Still Here from MPI doing some shop supervision. And I said that the producer on this project, Travis Stevens, was like, "You should be a producer." And a lot of people were saying that I should be a producer. Told Michael Felsher this, and he says, "Why don't you produce my Saw Blu-ray for Lionsgate," which is the first project I did on. And I was working with him for a while. And sometimes I was working with Elijah Drenner. And I know Elijah Drenner recommended me for this position at Kino Lorber. And that's how I appeared at the doorstep of Kino Lorber. And
Yeah,
great friend.
Elijah was a great editor and good friend. He was like the first guy I used to talk to about doing extras for us and stuff like that. So he was actually producer slash editor. And then he was so good at editing that I think more and more he just wanted to edit more and produce less. And he had worked with me at Olive even, like, one of the when we had interviewed the great Clint Walker, he actually drove there and, shot the interview at his house and everything else. So, yeah, he recommended, Heather to me, and it was a great recommendation, and I'm very happy he did, 'cause we've worked on a lot of projects together, some stuff I'm really proud of, um, and, uh and Heather is, she's incredible because when you give her, like, a project, I'm like, "I want this actor and this," but she always kinda goes the extra mile and finds other people. "What about this? What about this person has written books about project, about this film, maybe we could interview them." So there's a lot of the, credit should go to her as far as the bonus features is concerned because in my case, I'm usually trying to get the key person, the director, or sometimes the screenwriter, or maybe a couple of lead actors. When we did Rawhead Rex, it was a difficult project because we had to look for people all over Ireland and
The countryside.
the countryside,
Yes.
and she actually found a guy that played Rawhead Rex. He's a car salesman now, and he has some great stories to tell about how he met you two, this other stuff. And that's the only credit he ever had was Rawhead Rex. So, but we actually located him. So yeah, so that's how it happened. So
Yeah, I think originally the director was looking through some of the call sheets and was like, I think we can get him. Because that's also something I'm able to do is that I love to shoot all over the world and I have crew all over the world. And I can usually find somebody. Like now I'm doing something like on a tiny island in Hawaii, but I'll if there's someone there, I will find them and I will find the DOP. Even if they're wedding videographers, I will go on Zoom and it's like, this is what it's gonna look like.
Yeah, and then in some cases we get surprised when an American actor is not, and they're living in Europe. Like Viggo Mortensen, we shot in Europe, um, and there was other ones too. So now, currently, right now, I'm working with Michael sometimes as a, and then Heather, and of course the Douglas Hosdale. There, you're, well, the three of you are currently our key content producers.
Yeah, and Doug is great because I think Doug came to us via Elijah Joyner as well because he's a great camera person. He has great glass and things like that. I think he has a lot of vintage glass, and because sometimes I make feature films, I remember when I was making The Ranger, it's like, can we have someone or Doug like be around because I'm going to be on like 20 days on the ground, and sort of that's when Doug started to do more producing work for us. So he's like a triple threat. It's like producer, editor, and then also camera person. Also,
Yeah, and and he also moderates. You've done that too a few times. With some of the commentaries when we could do audio commentary with a director or writer. In some cases, they're a little older, and you really want somebody in the room with the filmmaker, unless they're a very talkative person. Like, I don't think you need anybody in the room with Guillermo del Toro. I think he'll talk. He'll be great by himself. But I think some directors need questions, and I know you remember you did one for us for The Color of Night, and I know Douglas has done a few of them too. So you've done a bunch, and I know that's the one that came to mind because,
I love doing the one for Crybaby.
yeah. And you also, I remember when we did Wanted Dead or Alive. I just spoke to Gary Sherman last week, who called me up after Wings Hauser passed away,
R.I.P.
and he and I talked about it, and then he said, as most of his big films are out on 4K now, and I was like, well, we're gonna try to see if we could do Wanted Dead or Alive. So that would be one that we would do, and we missed the opportunity last time to not name the bonus features. Fuck the bonus features, because in the if you're familiar with the movie, and in the movie that's the last line, he says "fuck the bonus" as he blows up Gene Simmons' head. So he had brought him alive, he would have made more money. So so, but anyway,
I love it. Gary Sherman's a great guy.
yeah, he was, and he has some really great stories to tell about Wings Hauser. Steve Mitchell has written and directed a full feature on Wings Hauser, and that's something we're looking at maybe acquiring and releasing. So,
Amazing. No, he's great. I love him as Ramrod in Vice Squad. And in so many other things, even like a real subtle performance in Rubber. Is really great.
well, he's great in everything. I mean, he was like, I watched an episode of Castle, and he was in it. And he was great, but unfortunately, he said that being so good at playing a bad guy, it kind of like pigeonholed him into those type of roles, and he could have done a lot more, I think. So
Hmm. Romantic lead, Hallmark movie.
yeah, why not? Wings Hauser. He's a good-looking guy.
Yes, I love the character performance, and every time I have a chance to, while working with Kino, to reach out to them. One of my on my list, it's like I tell Frank, it's like I would love to get an interview with Dan Hedaya, but a lot of the titles we have, he's like always so down the roster. It's like one day we'll get the Dan Hedaya interview in there.
Well, maybe Running Scared, if we decide to do that on 4K. I think he's like fourth build or fifth
There you
build
go,
now.
the
So
Hedaya.
Hedaya.
Well, I'm gonna be in LA soon.
One of the great one,
20th,
one
so
of the great character actors.
we can get them.
Oh, you're gonna interview Walter Hill for us, right?
Exactly.
Okay, for Undisputed. Um, yeah, she's Walter likes her a lot, so she's interviewed Walter a few times. And you just telling me how much George Miller likes you. So,
Yes, yes, and then a great pleasure of working also with Joel Schumacher when he was live. He was doing We did one of his movies, and I was there while he's moderating commentary. And I remember he looked at me the way that I look and showed me a picture of David from the Lost Boys because he said I look so cool. And little Heather has always wanted to look like David from the Lost Boys, so I felt like I arrived. So 13-year-old Heather, it's like there it is, I'm David. But one of my favorite director interactions was when I was doing Pasolini with Abel Ferrara and Willem Dafoe. And he's one of my favorite directors, but we also know he's a little wild. But I think we got a lot of great stuff out of him for a 3-camera setup. We shot that in New York City. And then the strangest thing, because I think I just asked to do the DVD supplement, but it was like, no, Heather, you're not going to do the Q&A at Metrograph. And I think it was the most funniest Q&A because it was like Abbott and Costello. Because I asked him a question. It's like, what's your favorite Pasolini movie? He goes like, I don't like that question. That's a stupid question. And I was like, okay, because I've been to so many of his Q&As. I know he likes to ask the audience stuff and have fun. And I was like, all right, what if we ask the audience? Is it okay to ask the audience? It goes like, ask the audience, ask the audience. And someone asked me a question, and I go like, Abel, do you like this question? And he goes, I'll answer it. But it was like very funny, the back and forth working with him. But he's one of my favorite directors. I would love to, though I've interviewed him before, but not on camera. I would like to do something with Schrader because he's one of my favorite directors and writers. But I think like the crown jewel is that I would love to talk to Scorsese. I got close while working with someone for another label for Hugo. I got close to talking to Thelma and Marty, but one day, maybe the
Yeah,
project
we
here.
released Schrader's latest film, or Canada, which has done well for us theatrically.
Yeah, I saw it when I was a can.
Yeah, and we also have released his first his directorial debut, Blue Collar. So we kind of have his first feature, and his last current
Yes,
feature,
yes.
not last current feature.
I feel very blessed because New York City is known for its Christmas parties for the film industry. And last Magnolia party, I got to sit down with Paul because I'll see him sitting alone in a room, and then I'll just go sit next to him and have to talk to him and go like, "Hey, Paul," and I always go like, "I work for." That's always my in is that I work for Kino, and it's like they just put out "Oh Canada," so it's a good line.
Yeah, we try to get Martin Scorsese to do audio commentaries for a couple of movies, and at one time he was semi interested, but then he got busy and couldn't do it. And there was, I have had conversations with Thelma, Thelma Schoonmaker, so
Yes,
um,
I was
uh,
blessed
I
too.
regularly talk to her. So whenever I need to reach out to Martin Scorsese, I usually reach out to her and see if something could be done. And
Have you gotten her on camera?
no, we when we released Kundun, I know that she and Marty were very much interested in overseeing a new 4K restoration, and we were willing to do it, but just I don't want to get into the politics of why it didn't happen. It didn't happen. And then there was also her the Michael Powell films that we had.
Yep,
She was very much involved and wanted to make sure that we those were done
of course.
correctly. So, but she regularly emails me and says, "Hey, can you give me a call?" And I call her back. She goes, "Thank you so much for calling me." I'm like, "Of course."
These are incredibly magical people. Yeah, what got in the way of my interview was just the long post process for Flower Moon. So it was in the company I was working with couldn't hold the disc long enough.
Yeah.
But I did get a yes, and I remember I was interviewing Robert Richardson, and he made a little video. It's like Martin, you should have Heather interview you. So I have that on my phone.
Well,
They still
your interviews are really good because you're very enthusiastic. Well, you love the film, you love the person, and so I've always most of the extras. I mean, even when we did all those, Deep Rising is not an all time classic, but it's a really
Hey
fun.
now.
It's a real fun movie. I mean, I will always defend it because I saw it in the theaters and with a Times Square crowd, and people were cheering and laughing at all the crazy death scenes and cheap scares and all of that.
Well, the interesting thing about that disc is that when I went out to treat Williams, because I think his manager or his agent, I was trying to describe Deep Rising for him, and he didn't get what I was talking about. It's like a tentacle movie. What? And then I think that's the reason that he's up on the disc. But I thought it was so funny. It's like, what if I ever told him that his client was in Dead Heat, and I tried to like describe Dead Heat to his agent, It's like zombie cops. What are you talking about? The most fabulous thing about that project is that I had a friend, Greg, who is the head of composition over at ILM, and told me if you send a drive over to ILM, they'll send you their work. And that is why on that disc is that we have all ILM's like stop motion work and all their sketches of how to create the tentacles and how to put it together. Because that was the first movie where they're going to marriage special effects and VFX together. And so
Yeah,
there's a lot of experiments. So on that disc, there's an extensive behind the
it's
scenes
really some
of
great interviews and extras on that. And then we also, of course, we interviewed all the key character actors in the film, and they were great. So,
yes.
but yeah, I'm proud of that release. I wish we could have released or released it on 4K, but unfortunately, the rights expired and we couldn't renew it. So, um, but I'm a big fan of those underwater monster movies.
Yes, Deep
So
Star
I
6,
so I did
Leviathan.
the Deep Star 6 is about to come out on 4K, and we've done Leviathan already. Uh, Below is different, but we've done Below too. So,
Mhm.
but
Below is really great.
yeah.
Don't
So
forget Endless Descent.
I've not seen that one.
Oh, it's the it's JP Simone who did Slugs and
The classics.
yeah.
One of my favorite discs I worked on was Slugs because I was working with Mike with that, and it was for Arrow, and he was like, I'm trying to find the special effects guy, and he goes, don't worry about Heather. It's like, no, we have to like treat Slugs like this is like a Criterion release, and I was able to find all these people that literally lived within 4 blocks of one another who worked on Slugs, and we tried so hard to get into the director's office to like rescue the mechanical slug head, but the daughter was no, because she was very upset at her father that he dedicated his life to genre and not the family. So I wrote so many letters and had so many letters interpreted into Spanish, but it's out there. That mechanical slug head is out there. So
yeah, there was
one day.
there was also, I remember when we had the director of Cabin Boy here, and he was like shocked that we were gonna give his film that for the lack of a better word,
That was so exciting.
Criterion treatment.
That was so exciting.
New art and everything else. He was so excited. So I remember that was a fun release we worked on.
And I was like, everyone be cool. Chris Elliott's gonna come into the office.
Uh,
Everyone gotta be cool.
yeah, and I actually hanged out with Chris Elliott during the screening of the movie with him and his wife, and we were just sat down for like 2 hours and just talked. Um, I remember at one point the director he told me he was like, only experience of that film he has is like people walking out. He said when he went to the first couple of weeks of when it opened, I was like, well, no, go in there and watch it with the 150 people that love the movie.
I love
And
that.
he was like, you know what, you're right. I said, it was kind of therapeutic for him to do that. So it was
Yes,
good.
and I know they leaned into the lo-fi aesthetic, but that's one reason that it's charming
Yeah,
and great.
the film was it's a great little movie. So it's a very funny comedy. It's critics never understood comedies. I remember there was like a great episode of Siskel and Ebert where Steve Martin and Chevy Chase, the week after they had given Three Amigos a really bad review, came on the show and challenged them and said, "You guys don't understand comedy." He says, "We're not making
But also, it's a certain kind of comedy because it's like silliness.
right the silly comedies the critics never got."
They're my favorite.
Yeah,
I love a
yeah,
stupid
and they're great. And Three Amigos, to me, is a classic. It's like has so many funny scenes in
plethora.
it. The songs, and all of that.
Yes, the singing bush. These are classics. These are classic movies that I love.
Yeah, Little
Well,
Buttercup.
this
Or
is a good segue because I similarly have worked with Heather on a couple of discs I produced, and similarly, she brought in amazing amounts of talent for the Phil Smoot movies, Alien Outlaw, and
I
classics.
literally archived
But
the beginning of the North Carolina film scene with that one.
yeah,
Pre-Deal de
it's
Laurentiis.
awesome. Yeah, I mean, you bring a level of detail to movies, that don't tend to get that kind of attention, and you bring people in who probably never thought that they would be able to relive sort of the magic of it. So I guess it sort of begs the question of like, you've done so many great interviews with directors and actors and assistant directors and special effects people. Like, what's your approach to crafting a really great interview?
Well, all this stuff started as an extension of that. How I got into the film industry is that I was working in advertising before, and I was like a creative lead at these jobs. And on the side, I would write for Fangoria and Dread Central. So this is an extension of the interviews that I did and that used to moderate and talk to people. I am sitting with people and I'm trying to learn from them and get their wisdom. And I sit back and all you sort of do, it's almost like a paper boat on a river. It's like you're just tapping and tapping, and you need to be radically present to listen to them, to understand when they're gonna start talking and then move there. I also would like to come at it like with almost like I've never seen the movie before. I've never seen these people as a child and sort of like ask questions about how things are made, how things happened. I mean, it just, to go back to when I was talking to Robert Richardson for another label, is that I really wanted to understand how he shot 3D. And so I'm sitting there and I'm going, okay, so I mentioned that the Cameron process. It's like, okay, so what's the Cameron process? Okay, after you did this, you did this. It's really understanding because also my advertising stuff. I have a design training, so I have Gestalt Bauhaus design training from University of Arts, which is, people went to Basel, it's modernism, and it always was interesting to me as well. It's like, what is the process? What is the mindset? And the idea of getting these stories and to be able to share them with the world, because I know a lot of young filmmakers that they watch these extras, they watch the commentaries, and they wanna know what was the magic? How did it happen? How were things put together? What is the mindset of these great creative people? And great creative people, of course, are, like, all down the line, like, they're above the line, they're below the line, they're your actors, special effects people, your costume designers, and to me, that's all key putting it together. So I think it's sort of like almost like a working class blue collar approach to talking to these great people. And I'm always very humbled and I've learned so much. And for me, it's almost been my own film school of how to approach and how to look at stuff. I think talking to, we have a project with George Miller, hearing that a movie that he was working on, I don't know if this is released out in Gen Pop yet, is that a Disney movie came out before his movie. They had 6 months to edit and he was able to find a better cut for his movie doing that. And then you go like George Miller, brilliant, Mad Max, all this stuff like that. This movie, was won an Academy Awards, but even there, and then I have like my indie projects that I work on, and I have ones particularly that we're trying to find the story and we're trying to find the edit. And the more that you hear, it's like, no, sometimes it takes longer. You have the script, you have the shoot, and then you have the edit to try to find that. And to sit with that and understand how film and things are made. So that's how I do it, and I also, of course, as I mentioned, do live Q&As, so I've done this stuff live as well.
Yeah, and also we treat their films with respect. It doesn't matter how B or C of a movie it is, or how little known it is, or how low budget it was. It was their project. It was their love that I Phil Smooth is like a sweetheart. He's like so humble, and he was so happy that his films finally got released, and he has beautiful masters for them, and
And for other horror fans, he's worked on Hellraiser 3. I think that's more.
yeah, and then he also it was him. The main reason I we ended up getting hyperspace, the great this little really cool, Chris Elliott and Paula Poundstone comedy sci-fi film. The reason we got it is because Phil Smooth made the introduction. It was like he knew the guy, and it was like, here it is, and so sometimes it's like if you we went out of our way to treat Phil with respect and got his films out, and they were the number two and number three Kino Cult releases, so and both of them were very happy with the whole release of those two films.
Well, as someone who's like a genre fan, I've seen Manos Hands of Faith projected in a theater, and I watch it as if I'm at church. So all these movies, I'm very quiet, and I do have great respect for them.
Manos
I
is a
love
classic. Manos is like
it is, but some people will
uh,
sometimes
it's really
people
funny.
giggle and laugh.
Oh, it is, but
No,
but it's okay to also kind of giggle and laugh because I know it was a Mystery Science Theater. Those was one of the best episodes they had on it.
at the movie.
Yeah, but the movie itself is also really good. So
Yes.
it's a lot of fun. Um,
Yeah, I mean, Frank, you have a ton of great producers, and obviously, like Heather brings a certain expertise. Like, how do you go about like choosing which producers to put on which releases? Like, do you do
Well,
like sort of personality fits?
no, it's I trust them, and I think she could do any type of film. But the ones that she gets excited about when we started reading, I mean, sometimes we have these meetings with you, me, and Douglas, and it used to be Elijah also. It was the three of us, we would have the four of us would have meetings. We would talk about films, and they always say, "Oh, that's I know this person. Oh, I love this movie." I want the person like this is the same thing when it comes to historian commentaries. Don't do us a favor. Don't do a commentary because we asked you to do one. Do it because you really like the movie. If you're enthusiastic, I don't care if it's a good movie or a bad movie or whatever. It's always great when a historian um, um, is doing a commentary. Was also a big fan of the film. One of the things I loved about Lee Gambon, God bless his soul, he
Yep.
passed away, was that he could make any film, even films he had never heard of. He would watch it and get enthusiastic about it, and then and then he would just talk about it and find new things to love and all this other stuff. Um, so he was like one of the few people that could do that. Other people, like once in a while, I'm like, oh, let me watch the movie first. If I appreciate that more than saying yes to something you're not enthusiastic about. Like I remember there was a historian. I'm not gonna name who it was. It was like, oh, Kino just give me the leftovers, and I'm like, well, wait a minute. We asked you if you were interested in doing. You said yes, you were. We didn't. We're not giving you the leftovers. And but that's how you not end up not working with us anymore by saying things like that. So, um, but it's all about like as soon as I told her we had Rampage, she was like, oh, she was overly excited.
Yes, little Heather pirated that on VHS, so that's the only copy that I have of Rampage in my house.
So this one we have two cuts of the film, I think both in 4K. It's gonna have some historian commentaries and some really cool interviews. We're still trying to get Michael Bean, right? I think.
Yes. Yes. Please, Michael Bean, contact us. I've talked to your manager so many times on the phone. I see that he does like little conventions, so I feel I'm gonna have to get in the car.
Yes, we also have Lords of Discipline that he's in, and K2 that he's in. Oh, I just I just revealed the title that we hadn't announced yet. So anyway, we have
We're
K2.
gonna we're gonna beat that up.
Yeah, we have K2. No, no, no. We always announce stuff on the show. So okay, so there's the announcements. K2's coming soon on 4K, and Michael Bean is in it. So hopefully Michael Bean will get in touch with us so we could do a nice interview with him where you could talk about all three films.
Also, one thing that I love about Frank is that I get to cover the exploitation movies, the action movies, the '70s movies. I mean, I'm working on Night of the Juggler.
Yeah, well, that was one of my dream films.
Yeah.
That's the film that I grew up. Um, I saw it. I remember saw it on HBO. I was too young to see it in theaters because my parents would not allow me to see R-rated movies. So I remember it was playing at 3 o'clock in the morning on HBO, and I got up quietly and went into the living room and watched it. And I was like, wow, this movie was so great. And then it came out on videotape, and I had a copy of it for a long, long time, and then it disappeared. It's been like a lost film.
Heather, tell us a little bit about your own physical media collection. Are there certain eras or genres that you tend to gravitate towards? Or, like, do you have any particularly prized discs?
Little Heather back in the day, I was a huge horror fan, and so I would go out and I would plug my 2 VCRs together and I would pirate things that I would get from the video store. And then when I was old enough, I would try to buy stuff from Suncoast. So my collection started with VHS, which I still have, and it was so hard to find like the letterbox unrated version of Evil Dead 2. As we started to move towards like DVDs and Blu-rays, it's not something that I could get rid of, and it's one of my favorite formats. And then when the mom and pop video stores started to go out of business, it was like, oh my God, I could get Shocking Asia 2 for $1, or I could get like this old Stephen King collection in big boxes because our minds were blown because growing up, these were so expensive. They were $99. So it's like, so that's my first layer. That's the bottom of the pyramid is my VHS. And then in my household, my bedroom, I have an OLED TV 4K. And then in my living room, I have my analog TV that I graduated high school with. So I have to say I have perfect blacks on both of my screens. And so I do watch my VHS in the living room with my VCR attached. And then there is a huge so we didn't collect laser discs for some reason, though I have some in my house. I bring up Evil Dead 2. I have like the red laser disc version. Some people have handed out to me. But like doing this work with Blu-rays, DVDs, I had a huge collection because I'm a rewatcher. And now that I have like 400 plus, there's so much Blu-ray at my house from all the labels that I work with, and I keep them in, like, barrister bookcases, and I organize them by vibe. So I like, real sort of, like, extreme, like, Besma, you know, can you put it out, that sort of stuff. So I have, like, a section for that. I have a section for zombies, a section for doc, and that's how I like to organize it throughout my house.
Heather, you also produce independent feature films. I know how hard that can be. Can you tell us a little bit about the process, the challenges, the rewards of doing that?
Alright, so how this happened is like, well, again, like, I come from an advertising background, so I was, like, a creative lead for 13 years, so it's a lot, like, high-end expensive management, cross-disciplinary management. I was at Fantasia Film Fest Market. Dale McLean, who's a producer, asked me what my day job was, and it's like, "Oh, like, creative lead or publicist," and it's like, "You're working on multi-million dollars accounts, pitching, working with different things. You should think about being a producer," and that led into, like, my Michael Fulcher story, and then because I did some special supervision at the beginning of it, and at some point, my friend Jen Wexler, because I hung out in the independent film world, who worked for Glass Eye Pix, Larry Fessenden, who is the best, was like, "Will you read my punk rock slasher script?" And I loved it, and I was interested in figuring out financing because working in advertising, you had to talk to your creative team using an artist language, but you have to talk to MBAs and clients in sort of business language. So I assumed, like, if I could talk about the marketplace, the audience, how this thing worked with, like, business people, finance people, could I get money for this movie to get made? I told Jen, it's like, "Can I just try to finance this, like, just between friends?" And finally, Jen was like, "Do you wanna produce this movie?" And The Ranger was the first movie I created. So it's very close to being creative lead, creative director, and advertising in the advertising world. It's very sort of similar skill set. It's to just you have to keep the vision, you have to move it through, and then also, like, working with auteur filmmakers like Jen Wexler, it's like you as the producer is like a client to that work. And it helps me making feature films and DVD supplement world because I hang out at, like, Cannes and Sundance and the stuff that I'm working on. So I was able to find a lot of, like, these more, like, A-list fancy people by being in these environments and being able to reach out. And sometimes even when I can't find people, I ask my agent, Brian Goldberg, for, like, DVD supplement help. And then I used to have a friend that would sort of, like, go into the dark web to find these people who couldn't be found. But, I'll find them one way or the other. That's how it sort of, like, all works together. For instance, like the Walter Hill stuff, there's a movie, Lucky Brown, at South by Southwest. I was interviewing Bill Pullman, and for some reason, I was like, I'm working on Long Riders, and I just can't get in touch with Walter Hill. And Bill Pullman said, when the interview's over, I'm gonna introduce you to my manager, and his manager is Walter Hill's wife. And that's how we got connected that way. So the more that I'm out in Gen Pop in the environment and talking to agents and CA and stuff like that, and also the work here helps me because, like, I'm talking to, like top 4 agents, and I can go like, "Oh, I've worked with you before," when I sort of go out with them for my independent projects, and it works vice versa, is that I have that access, especially because a lot of the stuff, like, when I work on straight genre stuff, a lot of those people aren't A-list. But what's interesting of working at Kino is that you could work out on Rawhead Rex and last year at Baited Ma and Priest, and you're able to reach out to those folks.
Frank, have you ever wanted to make a film? Like, in an alternate universe where you're a director, what kind of films would you make?
Well, actually, I wrote 2 screenplays, never I copyrighted them. I was with my, writing partner, Scott Griswold, um, and, they're both crime films. One was, from the point of view of the bad guys. It was like I guess this was way before Reservoir Dogs came out, but I remember when that came out, I was like, "Oh my god, he made the movie that I wanted to make." But when I watched, I was like, "No, his film was very dialogue driven, and I love Tarantino, but work as a filmmaker, I'll be completely the opposite of him. I'll be more of a visual filmmaker, where there's a lot less dialogue and a lot more, uh, you know, camera driven stuff." So yeah, so we did write the 2 screenplays. We were about to when I started at Kino, I was in my 20s, and my boss passed away, Donald Krim, he asked me, how many years can you give me? I said, well, I'll give you a couple of years, but after that, I'm going to go become a filmmaker. And unfortunately, or fortunately, the job became a much better job, and mainly because I knew what I was doing and the company grew. It was hard to be selfish and just go after my dream. And, because I had people depending on me and stuff like that. So you have to, when it comes to this industry, to be really, really successful, you have to have tunnel vision. You just have to like not care about this. This is me. This is my life. I'm going to go and do what I want to do. I just couldn't be that selfish about it because I was like, wait a minute, I have a lot of people to support. Being able to support people, and this is a really good job. And I'm still releasing classic films and stuff like that. So for that reason, I decided not to pursue my dream. But now I'm kind of thinking about the age I'm in. Maybe I'll start producing some stuff, and maybe one day I'll get to direct one movie. If I could get one film credit, and there's a lot of one-time filmmakers that are great, and I'm not saying that uh, my film will be as great as something like that of a Hunter, but that's something you could always think about. But anyway, I did write screenplays. I've shot some music videos, mostly stuff that people don't know about, but and went to film school a little bit here and there. But yeah, my original dream was to be a filmmaker, and I was gonna be a genre filmmaker. I was gonna be a mainstream director. I was gonna start in the independents, my first couple of films, and then I was hoping that would translate to working in Hollywood, because uh, similar to what Soderbergh has done, where he started, sexualizing videotapes and stuff like that, but later on started making bigger films. So that's what I would have probably wanted to do. So
I support Frank's dreams, and if you're ringing a producer, I'd love to see you direct, and I'd love to see your screenplays. Also, if you had a style, what do you think director out there or combination director would be sort of your style and your vision? Something that's visual, like you mentioned.
um, I would say I was a fan of. Not his films were flawed, but I think when Luc Besson was making stuff, I think he was up at one point. But Sam Peckinpah and
Leone and all?
big
Because
time,
that's all graphic and visual.
big time Leone, big time. I mean, there's no. He's like a huge. I mean, The Good, Bad, and the Ugly is probably my favorite movie of all time, if not one of my top 10 for sure. Because it's very hard for me to pick one movie as one favorite. But yeah, he would have been Stanley Kubrick. The visual directors were the ones that I always were huge fans of. So and Hitchcock was a great visual filmmaker. So he was another one of my
It's a
favorite.
very tailored, detailed image.
Right, David Lynch was another one.
Colors.
The Coen brothers. Uh, a good example of like The Criminals and Reservoir Dogs. All they do is talk. Of course, in Pulp Fiction, and everything, and there's nothing against that. I love those two films, especially Pulp Fiction is one of my all-time favorites. Um, my criminals were more like the killer in Fargo, the guy that Buscemi was talking and he just didn't want to talk at all. The great,
Stormare.
yeah,
Yeah.
Stromae performance. So he's that for me, because these guys that are professional killers and stuff like that, they're not going to be very talkative. They're probably going to be very quiet and deeply disturbed. So
Growing up in Jersey City, I've heard legend.
yeah.
They're also very funny. Like, if you come from this area, a lot of these criminal guys,
Oh,
they're not
yeah,
very dour, they're very funny.
They're gonna have a sense of
Very-
humor, yeah. They, of course, they gotta do, but less talking. I think that's the thing. They're not gonna sit around and talk about, uh, you know,
I don't know. Richard Kuklinski had some good one-liners.
Frank, what is your favorite horror movie of all time?
The Shining. I mean, I guess top five. I would think about the Texas Chainsaw Massacre, and I would say the original Halloween. The Thing is horror sci-fi. The Thing is my favorite Carpenter film. So
Do you have my Shout Factory disc that I made?
I don't buy Chef Extra. I'm just kidding. So,
It's considered the greatest home video release.
I actually I get Shop Factory discs sometimes delivered to me for free. So yeah, so I think I do have that one. Um, but yeah, The Shining, without a doubt. So
All right, we're going to move on to some of the audience questions. People emailed us So Aaron asks, what is your favorite bonus feature that you've ever produced and why? What bonus features would you personally like to see more of from studios and boutique labels if cost was no matter? Ooh.
My favorite DVD supplement. All right, I can tell you it's like there is on the Elephant Man disc, I think it's Criterion, there's this great interview with the special effects artist. And it's not just a talking head interview. You have voiceover as he's walking around the cabinets, opening things up, leafing through images and things like that. And after I saw that bonus feature, some of the stuff that I do that's more extensive, it's like I was very inspired to do that. So we're just not sitting in a place. We're looking for B-roll, we're looking for motion, we're making it more cinematic as if it's like a small movie. So that was very influential of me as a for a DVD supplement. I think one of the most interesting ones that I've worked on, it could have been sort of the ILM stuff for Deep Rising. So as a Oleg Fangorian, I'm a friend of special effects and VFX, and whenever I can get like people who do miniatures and all that stuff, is that I revel in that. So out of like the other labels, it's like working on like RoboCop 2 and 3 and sort of like archiving that stuff or the stuff that I did for the Empire box set. Anytime that I can get like VFX, FX stuff and talk about like technically how to put that stuff together means a lot to me. So there's a bunch of them out there. And yeah, and for us, like for Kino, it's like it's Deep Rising. And my favorite, again, like the most legendary interview was Abel Ferrara and William Dafoe, and understanding his like very like the chaos that he likes to create on set. But also, I remember like walking him to the interview and he's like, "Don't kill me." And I felt like, because like I'm 5'11" and a punk rocker, he knows how we are because he made Driller Killer. But that was one of my favorite things that I got to work on with him because I loved him so much, and I think it gets insight into his mind of how his sets are and how, because people say it's wild, but it's like it's not there's not a meanness there. It's just like he just wants this energy to create, and just to even to get a little insight into that, I felt very honored.
William asks, what's the status of Xanadu?
We reached out to the director, so he's going to do a commentary, which he's going to be overseeing the color grading of the new transfer. The master is, I think, about to be delivered. The Olivia Newton-John Society, I don't know what they're called. They've reached out to me about me being involved in the release and creating some extras. We've done some nice um, commentaries, and we're going to port over whatever else have been previously produced. So I'm hoping that it'll come out by uh, fall of this year, hopefully by September, October.
David asks, would Kino ever implement some kind of subscription service for lines of movies? For example, the Kino Cult releases and film noir box sets. I want to thank you too for keeping the Kino Cult numbering sequential and inclusive of both Blu-ray and 4K and not making them different quote series. And an overall thank you for continuing physical media at all and taking the time to do it right and make it worth the price.
Yeah, we've thought about that. We've thought about subscription basis. We release too many films, um, but targeting it towards a certain series like Kino Cult or the film noir box sets and stuff like that, it makes more sense. So yeah, we could look into that. I think that that's something that's possible. So
I think a lot of the descriptions you get like little doodads or slipcases and stuff like that new.
right, but
I think this is what audience is looking.
I think the thing is that if we did a subscription base where we get a 4K release of ours, how do we choose what to send to the customer? Because we have like 5 or 6 4Ks coming out every month. So it's going to be a little bit difficult. But yeah, you're right. There's also the other option of doing a special edition only,
Yeah, that's what I was wondering if
where they get the version that's nobody else is getting. But that's something that, yeah, we could look into that also. I think that's not a bad idea. So
Franco asks, what is the status of your new Studio Canal deal? Can we expect more French crime films with Alain Delon, Lino Ventura, Jean Rubin, Jean-Paul Belmondo, etc.? And outside of Studio Canal, are there French companies you'd like to work with more soon, like Galmont, Pathé, TF1, etc.? There are too many great French films that aren't getting a US release.
Yeah, we were very close to doing a Pathé deal. It just didn't happen. And then Gaumont, we continues to work with. Their great partners. TF1, we've done deals with. There's nothing currently happening with those two outside of renewals. Studio Canal, we did a 20 film deal just now. Two of them are British, and 18 of them are French films. And I would say all 18 are crime movies because I'm a big fan of genre. So,
So the
and
answer is
also,
yes.
so yeah, we do have Delon, we have Belmondo, we have Ventura, we have Jean Gabin, and we have uh, Michael Constantine and other some great actors. So Belmondo, Delon, Ventura, Gabin, yeah, of course, we have all four of them covered in this deal.
Does Kino ever get theatrical rights for any of these? I know when you buy stuff.
We have theatrical rights. We have theatrical rights for those films. When the right theater wants to screen them, we have them. We have those films. Yeah.
Mm.
So whenever we do, no, I'm sorry, not the Studio Canal ones. Studio Canal we don't have theatricals, but their deal is with Rialto. For the TF1 titles and for the Gaumont ones and stuff, we do have theatricals. So
Do you have theatrical for Night of the Joba?
yes, we do. It's gonna premiere. It's gonna have its world premiere in Fantasia Film Festival. So
Are you gonna be up there?
I don't think so.
James asks, what was the process in acquiring the license for the Ilsa films? And Al also asks, when can we expect the 4 Ilsa Kino Cult UHDs?
That's been a very complicated release. Well, the rights were with Lionsgate. We did a deal with Lionsgate and we acquired it from them. There were other companies interested, so we're very happy they let us pick them up. They're very controversial films. We have where it looks like more and more that we need to probably release them one by one because the first film is almost ready to go. Um, so that's what we're probably gonna do. We're gonna release them. I know we had promised a box set, and if you're gonna wait for a box set, we may still do one. I think we will probably do it when the 4 films are released. But at this point, we may look into releasing the first one, hopefully by August or September.
Is it because of the restoration of the elements?
It just taking forever because there was all like the elements were all in Canada. We got a Canadian company to do the scanning, the restoration. It has to be approved by Lionsgate. It's been a very slow process. So
You can always do a new box set when they're all done with new cover art, little booklet,
yeah,
subscription, Ilsa on subscription. I've seen all of them except for Tigress.
yeah.
But I watched them all in one shot one day, except for that one.
I remember renting them from my neighborhood store when I was a kid.
As a kid,
Yeah, well, my parents, yeah, I was I think 12 or 13.
that's the right age for us.
So my parents would go to they used to go to the mall on Saturdays and stuff like that, Westbury or whatever. And I'll stay home and watch R-rated films. So I remember that, yeah.
Ted asks, how do you determine whether a 4K release will be in Dolby Vision, HDR, or SDR? Does it cost more to release a disc in Dolby Vision or HDR? Where would the extra cost come from, in mastering or replication? And finally, are there some films that you think look better in SDR? If so, why?
In some cases when we have SDR is because that's what we got that was delivered to us. We prefer to do everything HDR, HDR10, Dolby Vision. Um, so a lot of some of these Studio Canal titles, that's what Studio Canal decided to do, and we ended up releasing SDR only. But when we do our own transfers, it's always HDR.
Why do you prefer that?
That's what the fans prefer. I personally, to be honest with you, I think SDR is perfect. I think SDR looks great. I've never, I don't know. There's people that are. I think there's like some filmmakers have come out and said they prefer SDR. But again, I think a really beautiful transfer on Blu-ray would look great on the 4K TV too. So again, but I think HDR is, yeah. When we do our own transfers, it's always HDR, and when available at Dolby Vision. So
Radrick asks, any updates on Freak Kids Rampage?
She is also casting on Rampage. We're very close to getting the masters. Um, It'll be a special edition, and we're hoping to get Michael Bean. Anybody knows Michael Bean, please.
Or if you're at a convention and Michael Bean's there, like, just ask for us. Ask
Yeah,
for Kino. It's like, "Listen, Heather's been trying to get in touch with your manager for a very long time."
tell him we were looking for him. We got K2, we have Rampage, and we have a Law of Discipline, which we would love to have him talk about it because that was one of his earliest performances. And also the director of Law of Discipline is the director of K2. So he had a lot of good things to say about both Michael Bean and Bill Paxton. Bill Paxton and Law of Discipline, that was he wasn't an actor. He was just on the set, and the director liked his face, and he was like, "We're gonna put him in there," and he got a big role out of it. So
Are you gonna for Rampage, is that just gonna be the poster, or are you gonna do reverse?
I'm gonna see what's available to us. I don't think we're gonna do commissioned art,
Mhm.
but well, of course we're gonna use the poster and then see what else is available. Sometimes that international posters are sometimes really interesting, and we use those usually as reversible. So
Antonio asks, can you give any info on the production issues with the 4K of Dante's Peak, which caused a release delay until April?
we cannot really get into the reasons why both Dante's Peak and Daylight were delayed, but they're not canceled. They both come out later this year, hopefully. So
John asks, I'm curious how restoration producers get their start. Obviously, there are multiple entryways, like working in an archive, as a programmer, in exhibition, but I'm curious how I might transition from a film programmer to distribution and restoration work.
that's something that you need to ask the person that's doing that. I don't think we neither of us do that. So to be honest with you, I don't know.
At Fantasia Film Festival, like, a long time ago, I actually did a film panel on restoration with a lot of the labels with, like, Severin and Vinegar Syndrome and stuff like that, and what's interesting about restoration that I'll bring up is that it's people are trying to find, like, what is the ultimate cut of the movie and the research that takes that. I remember working on for Second Sight and then Configuration, and I was talking to Don May from Synapse about that, and he said there's about, like, 9 cuts around, which
Yeah,
what's exciting about Rampage is that you're gonna at least do 2.
right. But the thing is, in most cases, the fans really want to make sure that you do have the original cut.
Mhm.
And then, of course, if there's a director's cut, they want that, including 9 cuts. Is I know what, yeah, it's insane. But also, when it comes to restoration work, it's like you have to really understand color grading, understanding what the color of the film originally was supposed to look like. So that's how they usually. So if a person that has done projection work and yeah, they're probably a good person to eventually maybe be involved in doing something like that. So, but to be honest with you, I don't know. I've never done. I mean, I've worked with filmmakers. I've talked to directors that were like, "Well, I don't even know how to do this." So you get talk to the cinematographer. So it depends. Depends. I think understanding camera and colors and all that kind of stuff, I think is a good way to start. I guess. So,
McCready asks, any update on the Danger Diabolic 4K?
Danger Devil League. We're supposed to get the master pretty soon. We're hoping to get Guillermo del Toro to do a commentary on it. He had said he was interested, but he's a very busy man. So
He's a friend of Kino, right?
yes, he is very good.
Mhm.
We have a good relationship with him. He's gonna oversee the color grading of Mimic, and he's gonna do a commentary for that too. And so I'm hoping to get Mr. Del Toro. If we cannot get him, then we'll just go ahead with our release.
David asks, I have every reason to believe KL Studio Insider on Blu-ray.com is Master Lime under a new handle and feel he still works for Kino making announcements on the same schedule as before he changed his handle. His verbiage is the same, his responses to forum members is the same. It feels like the worst kept secret in the KL universe. Just let the cat out of the bag.
Okay, that's what he believes. That's good. We're not gonna get into who's.
I like there's underground Kino Lorber conspiracy.
Yeah, it is. It's a big mystery. Uh, Mr. Lime Kale Insider. Well, there's 3 or 4 people that posted on the Kale's Insider, so I don't know. Uh, which one is Mr. Lime, but I don't know. We'll see.
Aaron asks, this is niche, but hey, we're all niche here. Kino did A Diva Lover a solid and released multiple films starring Cher, like Good Times and Silkwood. Any chance Kino would help finish preserving an iconic career, including Chastity, Mermaids, Mask, and Tea with Mussolini? Bonus points if you yourself have a favorite Cher song. Haha.
Uh, I I don't think those are films that I would go out looking for to acquire. I think they're good films and stuff like that. But I mean, as far as Cher is concerned, I think we did Silkwood, which was a great performance by her. I think Moonstruck is one that I would have probably acquired if it was available to me. I think it went to Criterion. Um, and I always enjoyed that Peter Yates film that she was in with Dennis Quaid, Suspect. Um, Mask, I guess, is another good one. What's your favorite Cher movie?
Well, I always well, for me, it's Moonstruck, so I'm not usually someone who's into a lot of romantic movies, because like, the most romantic movies ever, Taxi Driver, so when I watch Moonstruck, it reminds me of, like, an American version of an Almodovar film. Now, Almodovar makes movies that if, like, I read about it's always a love story, people hanging out together, and it's like, this is not Heather Buckley movies, but everything he makes, I wanna watch. There's, like, some sort of energy in it, and I feel that way when I watch Moonstruck, so that was probably my favorite movie.
That's like a very good, yeah, it's like, Woman on the Verge of a Nervous Breakdown. I remember seeing that in a theater and just walking out with a smile on my face
Yeah.
because it's like, it's such a beautiful film.
Tie Me Up, Tie Me Down, all those things like that. Of course, my favorite Almodovar film is, of course, Matador, obviously.
Matador is also a really good one. That was the first one I actually saw ever in the theaters. So first film of his.
And I don't think that's available. I had to buy
And
it.
part of it, I think it's part of a library that Spanish company owns. I think it's that and all his other early films.
Yeah, I only have a DVD. There's no Blu-ray of
Yeah.
it. It's an out of
So
print DVD.
I agree. I'm not a big romantic comedy fan, but I always have said that Moonstruck is probably my favorite of romantic comedy. I think Norman Jewison is very, very underrated as a filmmaker, and I think he's a guy that regularly changes his style and look. So he's not considered an auteur, but I think he's a great filmmaker. So just think about it: The Heat of the Night, Rollerball. Uh,
That Rollerball and
yeah, there was like all these other really, really Norman, Thomas Crown Affair, and then of course Moonstruck and Soldier Story and all these other ones. So, but yeah, Moonstruck is probably my all-time favorite romantic comedy. I think it's one of my favorites. I mean, not counting the 30s and 40s stuff because there's a lot of really great ones that were made that time. But
I also love Grosse Point Blank, of course.
yeah, that's a very good movie. Yes. Yeah.
Very good romance. What is your favorite comedy?
It's very hard, but if I had to pick one, I'd probably Young Frankenstein.
That's a good one.
It's very hard for me to pick one. I mean, I think Young Frankenstein probably my favorite, but I love a lot of the, as people could see because I really a lot of Bob Hope. I love a lot of the Bob Hope comedies. I love some Jerry Lewis films. Duck Soup is another masterpiece, I think. So there's a few other ones, but
Always Raising Arizona for me.
Abbott and Costello Meet Frankenstein
Incredible.
is
It's
one
an
of the great
incredible movie.
ones. Raising Arizona is a great film. Like, I love that film.
Also, Albert and Costello from Jersey.
So John asks, are there any remaining titles from the Lionsgate deal that you can talk about? And do you happen to have a second deal lined up with that company?
We've talked to them about doing another deal. There's one film that we had dropped because it wasn't available. We couldn't find the film elements. They've located the film elements, and now we may at least pick that back up. It was a horror film, so I think fans will be happy. Um, the other doing another Lionsgate deal, that's something that we've discussed, yes. But at this point, there's nothing I could confirm.
Nicholas asks, how do you get so many insightful film critics and scholars for the essays included in the physical packaging for your Blu-rays and DVDs?
Well, people recommend people. We worked with a lot of different people, right? This guy mentioned Lee Gambon, Steve Mitchell,
Cat Ellinger.
Cat Ellinger, and you know, um, Tim Lucas, of course, Imogen Sarah Smith, she's great. There's a lot of different Julie Kurgo. So we have it. Just sometimes you listen to somebody's commentary of another label of maybe hire them, and then you're like, well, this is a person I would like to work with. So we find their contact info and get. I mean, Julie has done lots of commentaries for us, but I used to hear her commentaries with Nick Redman, the late great Nick Redman on the Twilight Time discs. So I was always a fan of her commentaries, and I was like, it would be great for her to record some for us. And she's been doing. I think she was doing one a week. She's been recording one every Tuesday or Wednesday this since I think that's 4 or 5 weeks in a row now. She's done Sabrina. She's done the two Babe movies, Somewhere in Time. She's gonna do this remake of Sabrina. So there's a lot of that.
And Kenneth says, Frank! Exclamation point. Tell us the story of how you were able to acquire the rights for Night of the Juggler, and explain why it's a holy grail title for you personally.
Well, I talked about it a little bit before about how what it meant to me. I I woke up at 3:45 in the morning to watch it on HBO because it's an R-rated film. I couldn't even tell my parents I was doing it. I was kept quietly getting up and to be honest, no, I wasn't watching it. I put a tape in there to record it with the TV off. So, because if I would have watched it, my dad was a hawk. He would wake up and find, what are you doing? What are you doing? What are you watching? So I remember doing that, and then later on, I had the VHS, and then it's like great one of those great like New York movies that was made in the early '80s, and Unfortunately About You the Bronx, and um, of course all the other ones that that I'm not gonna mention, but so I was always been a big fan of the movie and the film, and the rights have always been unclear. Like we kind of knew who owned the rights, but it was always not. We're not sure how we're gonna get. So all of us, all the labels, have been trying to get the rights to the movie, and then this is something. To be honest, they reached out to us. It wasn't a situation where um the person that acquired the rights reached out to us and said, "Are you interested in releasing this movie?" I almost fell out of my chair. I was like, "Yes." Uh, so we made a nice offer for it, and there were other people interested, and we ended up getting it. So I'm very, very happy. So
Well, thank you so much, Heather and Frank, for chatting with us today. If you're interested in the films we discussed today, you can find them along with thousands of others at kinolorber.com. The link is in the description below. While you're there, sign up for the newsletter. And if you haven't already, be sure to follow us on social. I want to really just thank everyone so much. Be sure to check back next month for our next episode. See you next time.
thank you.
Good night, Gracie.